Okay, so I have quite a bit of work to do to tie this all together. There's some areas where values are shifting really drastically. There's also some contour lines that are still left in the portrait that need to be transitioned into value and be less lines. And then there's just kind of overall value shifts that need to happen. So, and some stray lines and other craftsmanship issues. So at the end of while you're working on your piece, you always want to make sure that you're using a piece of scrap paper underneath your hand. So that way you're not creating more issues while you're fixing other issues. You also want to make sure that you kind of take some time to take some steps away from your piece, look at it from a distance, look at it close, make sure that you're also looking at it level. Just a heads up, the camera is filming this piece at like an angle backwards, so it does make my like upper body look much larger in comparison to my head than it actually is. My head is, you know, my shoulders are about a head width on either side, which is the proportions that you want for your portrait. It just looks much smaller because of the direction that the camera is filming. But the really nice thing is if you find that there are a lot of big issues in your piece, they're not hard to fix because charcoal, remember, is a very forgiving medium. But that being said, I am going to take some time now and kind of work through my issues, and I will kind of let you know some of the things that I'm kind of looking at and working on as I do that. Okay, and so now what I found with my portrait is that I needed to have more consistent transitions between highlights and shadows. And so some of the areas where there was really stark contrast, I needed to go back in with my hard charcoal and create better transitions. So that often is something for retouching areas and pulling everything together. The hard charcoal, the kneaded eraser, and the blending stump can really help to make the transitions around the forms of the face more gradual. And so since you've been working highlights and shadows, it might be nice to kind of work more in those middle value areas by using those tools and those techniques. So a lot of this step in the process is really looking back at the details around the whole piece and revamping them and revising them. Making sure that edges are sharp against each other, but not too sharp where they should be gradual. Making sure that the values are appropriate for what you need in the piece. And so if an area is too light, you can go back in with your hard charcoal to revise that, or take your blending stump and kind of shift a little bit more value in there. If a value is too dark, using your kneaded eraser to kind of lighten it. And so just kind of looking around and kind of shifting things in the direction that they need to go in. Cleaning up edges in places is important at this stage too, any stray marks. Taking a chance to kind of like make sure that the eyes really are the star. And so fixing any areas there, pulling out your white highlights again. Sometimes just like the dust of the charcoal gets into some of the white areas and you need to kind of clean them up. The last step is to spray your piece with fixative. Final fixative is preferred, workable fixative is fine. Hairspray is a great thing to use in a pinch. So it does help to kind of set the charcoal onto the piece and keep it there so it doesn't smudge as much. So my portrait, the lights are a little bit lighter in this photograph than they actually are in reality, and so just be mindful, cameras do truncate value, but you want to make sure that you have a full range of value from the darkest dark that you can get with that charcoal, that nice rich velvety black, to the white of the paper. And so you want to go through and make sure that you have a full range of value all the way through the middle values to each ends of the value scale. Then you want to make sure that the highlights and shadows are placed appropriately and consistently with the light source that you've been working with. Clean up any highlight areas that need to be cleaned up. Make sure that shadows are consistent and appropriate in their value application as well. And then spray it to finish it.